I moved to this quiet town 2 years ago. I thought I could find peace after a rough breakup. The plan was simple: focus on my art and heal. My new apartment above the bookstore felt just right, cozy and warm. The storefronts below were charming, and I could even smell fresh coffee brewing every morning. But everything changed on the second night. I woke up to soft, thudding sounds. At first, it just felt like the building was settling, a normal noise for an old place. I tried to brush it off and go back to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. As days passed, the thudding got worse. It turned into a rhythmic tapping, like someone was making music in the attic. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling uneasy. The sounds echoed, pulling me down into dread. Each beat sank deep into my stomach. One night, I spotted something strange. Candlelight flickered through the cracks in the wall. My neighbor, who I thought was friendly, hosted odd gatherings with shadows dancing in her window. I couldn't focus on my art anymore. I was too drawn to what was happening next door. I began to have nightmares. Vivid dreams pulled me back to my past. I saw flashes of my old relationship, the pain washing over me like a storm. I woke up in a sweat, my heart racing. Every night became a battle between sleep and terror, memories clawing at my mind. I decided to confront my neighbor one evening. I didn't want to feel scared anymore. I walked to her door, my hands damp with sweat. My heart pounded as I knocked softly. The door creaked open, and she stood there. Her smile was gone, replaced with something cold. "Hi, can I ask you about the noises?" I stuttered, feeling a chill wrap around me. Her eyes seemed to hollow out, watching me closely. It felt like time stopped. Suddenly I heard the thudding again. This time it was louder, more urgent. I turned toward the attic, my breath catching in my throat. I felt an icy wave of fear wash over me. Her voice was low. "You shouldn't have come here." I took a step back, feeling as if I might fall. What did she mean? I wanted to flee, but something held me there. "Why?" I managed to ask. I didn't want to provoke her. She leaned closer, her eyes glinting in the dim light. "You have to understand the price." I stumbled back. What price? I felt trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I turned to flee, wanting to escape everything around me. But I froze at her whispers behind me. "The pact is already sealed." A shiver ran down my spine. Was I caught in something I didn't understand? I felt the walls of the building close in on me, the shadows shifting like they had a life of their own. As I ran to my apartment, I knew I had to find out what had happened there before me. Then I heard another sound, a low moan from the attic. I knew deep down that whatever was up there had been waiting for me all along. The next morning I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at a blank canvas. My paintbrush hung limply at my side. The daylight felt foreign and cold. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I needed answers, but where to start? The bookstore below me was the only place that felt safe. I grabbed my coat and decided to head down. Maybe I could talk to the owner, an older man named Mr. Gibson. He had lived in the town for years and might know more about my neighbor. As I walked down the creaky stairs, I kept glancing back at my door. I half expected her to be lurking there, her hollow eyes watching me. I pushed the thought aside and stepped into the bookstore. The smell of paper and coffee filled the air. Mr. Gibson looked up from behind the counter. "Morning. Didn't see you much this week. Busy with your art?" I forced a smile. "Not really. Can I ask you something about the tenants in this building?" He raised an eyebrow and leaned closer, intrigued. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I hesitated. Should I mention my neighbor? I've noticed some strange noises coming from above. And, well, there's a woman who lives next door. Do you know her? Mr. Gibson frowned for a moment. You mean Celeste? She keeps to herself. But you're not the first to mention odd happenings around her. Some say she does rituals. A knot tightened in my stomach. Rituals? Like witchcraft? He sighed, looking over his shoulder as if to check for eavesdroppers. Folks around here have stories. It's best to not get involved in her business. Some believe she made a deal with dark forces. You don't want to be part of that. I felt a chill. Dark forces, the thudding, the moans. It all started to click. What kind of deal? Mr. Gibson shook his head. They say she's bound to something, a pact. Anyone who gets too close risks getting tangled up in it. My heart raced. Did that mean I was already in danger? I thanked him and stepped outside, the crisp air biting at my cheeks. I needed to confront Celeste again, but something kept pulling me back. What if it was too late? What if I was already part of her twisted game? As I walked back to my apartment, I noticed a flicker of light through the cracks in the wall again. It was more intense than before, as if something was trying to get my attention. The low moan echoed once more, sending shivers down my spine. I knew I had to act. I wasn't just fighting for my peace anymore. I had to uncover the truth buried beneath these shadows. But as I reached my door, the sound shifted into a piercing scream. A voice I recognized. It was mine. Before I could process it, everything went dark. I jolted awake on the floor of my apartment, chest heaving. The darkness around me felt suffocating, but I could hear everything. The thudding pulse echoed in my ears, and I instinctively scrambled to my feet. Light from the window had returned, filling the space with a pale glow. What happened? I was fine just a moment ago. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. Ominous whispers lingered in the corners of my mind, taunting me. Celeste. Had I truly lost consciousness, or had she done something to me? In a frantic hurry, I grabbed my coat and rushed to the door. I needed to find her. I had questions, and if Mr. Gibson was right, I was already dangerously close to the darkness surrounding her. As I stepped into the hallway, it felt different, charged. I moved towards her apartment, heart pounding with unease. The door was slightly ajar, creaking softly as I approached. I pressed my ear against it. Silence hung like a thick fog. Placing my hand on the cool wood, I hesitated. What if she was doing something ritualistic? I could be walking into a trap. But I needed answers. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The living room had an unsettling atmosphere. Candles flickered around a low table, their scent pungent and acrid. Herbs hung from the ceiling, dried and dusty. The walls were lined with strange symbols, etched almost carelessly, whispering of a past I couldn't comprehend. "Celeste," I called out, my voice trembling. I started to move deeper into the dark space. Every footfall felt heavier than the last. Was she even here? Just as I was about to retreat, I heard a noise from the back, the unmistakable sound of something being knocked over. Trembling, I followed the sound, pushing aside the heavy curtains that blocked my view of the back room. As soon as I stepped through, a chill shot down my spine. There she was, Celeste, staring at me with those hollow eyes. "Do you seek the truth?" she asked, her voice like gravel scraping against stone. I need to know what you've done," I stammered, forcing myself to meet her gaze. A sly smile crept onto her lips. "You've stepped into the shadows. You can't turn back now." Before I could respond, a sudden rush of energy filled the room. A rush of images flooded my mind, fragments of the dark deal she was entangled in. My heart raced as the knowledge poured in. I stumbled backward, shaking my head. "No, I didn't want this," I shouted, feeling the panic seep back into me. Celeste moved closer, a knowing glint in her eyes. "You already are." And then, somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I heard a voice, a soft, familiar whisper. "Help me." It was a plea, but not mine. Panic surged inside me as I realized I was not just confronting Celeste. I was connected to something deeper, something far more sinister that tied me to her past. The walls started to shift as shadows encroached, and I was overwhelmed. I had to escape. I had to get away. Just as I turned to bolt for the door, I felt something cold grip my ankle, pulling me back into that ominous void. I was not alone. Someone else was here. The grip tightened around my ankle, and I felt a surge of raw panic. I yanked my foot, trying to free myself, but the darkness clung like a leech. Desperation fueled my movements as I kicked, hoping whatever had a hold of me would release. That's when I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows behind Celeste. Tall and shadowy, its features were indistinct, but there was a haunting familiarity to the silhouette. It stepped forward, revealing a face twisted by despair and something darker. I knew him. Ethan. My voice trembled as recognition shot through me like a jolt of electricity. He was the man from 2 years ago, the one who had promised me the world before vanishing, the one who had drawn me into danger. I had thought I'd escaped him, but here he was, lurking behind Celeste, bound to this twisted fate. "Help me," he rasped, his voice echoing with the weight of past regrets. "We need to break the curse." "What curse?" I cried, wrestling with the cold tendril still grasping my leg. "You disappeared. You could have told me." His gaze remained fixed on Celeste, the sadness in his eyes deepening. "I had no choice. I thought I was protecting you, but it only made things worse." Celeste laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "You think he can save you? He's part of the darkness, just like you." "Shut up!" I shouted at her, trying to drown out the despair festering inside me. I couldn't be part of this. I couldn't be like him. I ripped my foot free from the shadows, staggering backward into the flickering candlelight. As I moved, the room twisted. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with energy, echoing Ethan's plea in an unsettling rhythm. I turned to him, desperate for an answer. "What do we do?" "We need to confront the Pact," he said, his voice raw. "It binds us, and if we don't untangle it together, we'll be trapped forever." Together. The word felt foreign, laced with the memories of betrayal and loss. Was I really ready to trust him again? Celeste stepped forward, the smirk on her face transforming into something sinister. "You want to play the hero in this sad story? You don't know the stakes." The shadows swirled around us like a storm, and I could feel the air thickening. Time felt suspended, and in that moment I was faced with the unimaginable choice. Run and risk losing everything, or stand my ground, align with the very man who had cost me everything. Then, everything went dark. A flash of blinding energy erupted in the room, and a deafening roar drowned out my thoughts. The candles extinguished, and I was swallowed by the void. I gasped for breath in the sudden stillness, my heart racing. I no longer felt the cold tendrils of shadow. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized I was no longer in Celeste's apartment. The walls were gone. I stood in a place that felt ancient, with an eerie light illuminating stone carvings all around. One of them drew my attention, and my heart dropped. It was a depiction of the very pact I feared, and I was in the center of it. I turned, desperately seeking Ethan. But he was gone. All that remained was the chilling echo of Celeste's laughter, and I was left with a single, terrifying truth. The real confrontation was only just beginning. The air felt electric, crackling with unease. I stood alone in the dimly lit chamber, the stone carvings watching me with a judgment I couldn't escape. Panic began to bubble as I realized I needed to act. Although Ethan had vanished, his presence lingered like a ghost in the back of my mind. "Ethan," I called out, my voice muffled by the silence. No response, just me and the shifting shadows. I glanced around, heart pounding. Each carving mirrored the chaos swirling inside me. One symbol caught my attention. It depicted a circle surrounded by strange glyphs and images of people caught in despair. My breath hitched when I recognized part of the design. It was a mirror of the Pact binding Ethan and Celeste together. A cold dread settled in my stomach. It wasn't just Ethan who had created this curse. Celeste was entwined in it too. My gut instinct screamed that I should leave, but where could I possibly go? I needed answers. That's when my eyes caught a glimmer at the edge of the chamber. I stepped closer, cautiously moving forward. The light flickered, revealing an intricately carved pedestal topped with a small, dark stone orb. It seemed to pulse gently, as if alive. I reached out, drawn by its inexplicable allure, but a sharp chill ran through me when I felt the energy radiating from it. This wasn't just an artifact. It felt like a connection to the curse itself. "What are you?" I whispered, fingers brushing against the cool surface. Suddenly the shadows shivered, coalescing into shapes that moved beyond my control. Whispers danced around me, echoing secrets of the past, the darkness that Ethan had tried to protect me from. Panic bubbled inside me as voices grew louder, calling my name, pleading. I stumbled back, bumping into one of the carvings. "I don't want this!" I cried, clenching my fists. "I didn't sign up for any of this." But the shadows only drew closer, wrapping around my feet like murky waters pulling me down. Then I remembered Ethan's words. The Pact formed chains that bound us. If he were here, what would he tell me? I had to confront it. With a deep breath, I shouted into the void, "I'm breaking this!" The orb pulsed in response, the energy surging to life, filling the entire space. I stepped back, uncertain of what I had unleashed, and the whispers turned into anguished wails. I could see forms starting to emerge from the ground, specters wrapped in despair, their eyes hollow and pleading. "Celeste!" I shouted, half wondering if she could hear me, half terrified of what I might unleash next. The room shook, and shards of light erupted from the orb, illuminating the carvings and revealing the horrors hidden within. I backpedaled, crossing my arms over my chest to shield myself. This was not merely an echo of the past, it was now a battleground. I had to finish what was started, to face whatever awaited me unflinchingly. And then, amid the chaos, I caught sight of a figure behind the shadows. It was a familiar outline. Ethan, but transformed. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. "I'm here," he said. "We need to do this together." My heart raced. The stakes had never felt higher. If we were going to confront this curse, we had to face the enemy together. But was he really back, or just another illusion? As doubts fought for space in my mind, the shadows grew stronger, drawing closer. It was now, or never. The moment Ethan appeared, the shadows hesitated, as if sensing the shift in power. I strained to make sense of what I was seeing. The figure that had once held my hand now stood surrounded by darkness, an echo of the boy I loved. But the fierce glow in his eyes told a different story. "Ethan, is that really you?" I yelled over the din of wailing voices. Doubt twisted in my chest, a heavy weight. He took a step closer, and the shadows recoiled as if they couldn't bear his presence. "You've unlocked something. We have to harness it, or it will consume us." His voice was steady, but I could hear the urgency underneath. "I don't know how. I can't—" "Just listen to me," he interrupted, his expression fierce. "This curse binds us, but there's a way to break it. You have the power. You're the only one who can. Trust in yourself." The orb on the pedestal throbbed in answer, bathing us in a flickering light that felt both warm and threatening. I felt an undeniable pull towards it, an odd sense of belonging, but fear surged through me. What if I fail? I can't bear to face those shadows alone. "Together," he said, reaching out his hand. "We can fight them. You must break the chains. They were forged in lies." The shadows snarled and swirled around us, their whispers rising to a deafening roar. Despair clawed at my insides, but Ethan's fierce gaze anchored me. I drew a deep breath, steeling myself against the chaos. With a fierce determination, I stepped forward and grasped his hand. The instant our fingers intertwined, I felt a rush of clarity, a light illuminating the dark corners of the chamber. The shadows screeched, pushing back against our combined strength. Now, Ethan's voice cut through the noise. Focus on the orb. Channel your energy into it. I turned my gaze toward the pulsating stone. The glyphs swirled before my eyes, each line etching more memories into my mind. I saw fleeting images of Celeste and Ethan entwined, bound by promises that felt suffocating. I understood then that this wasn't just their curse. It was a cycle that trapped all of us. Summoning every emotion, every memory connected to their pact, I forced it into the orb. I refused to let this define us. The words erupted from my lips, echoing in the room like thunder. The orb exploded with blinding light, the room trembling as shadows writhed in discord. Ethan squeezed my hand tighter, his presence grounding me. I could sense the struggle of countless souls intertwined in this curse. "We can release them," he shouted. But then a shriek cut through the space, more powerful than the rest. The shadows gathered, angry and desperate. "You cannot escape," they howled. I staggered as the force pushed against us, and fear threatened to swallow me whole. In that moment, I felt the weight of countless eyes upon us. The specters who had lived in torment and in desperation. I called out, "Join us! Find your strength!" What happened next took my breath away. Forms began to break free, their desperate faces shifting into expressions of hope. They surged towards the orb, merging their energy with ours. But then I caught a glimpse of something darker in the shadows. One figure emerged, more solid and intent, a face I didn't recognize, but it felt familiar all the same. My heart raced. I was not just fighting for myself, but for everyone who had ever been ensnared by this curse. "Ethan, look," I shouted, panic bubbling up again as the figure closed in. Just as I registered the threat, the light from the orb flickered dangerously. Whatever had come into focus was intent on stopping us, and the moment felt ripe with danger. The figure stepped closer, and a chill swept through the chamber. It was tall, cloaked in darkness, and the air around it shimmered with an unsettling energy. I squinted, trying to shape the shadow into a face, but it was elusive, almost mocking. "Ethan, we can't let it reach us." My voice trembled, the weight of desperation suffocating. "Focus!" Ethan shouted, his grip unwavering. "The orb, don't let it dim." The shadows roared, the noise almost drowning out Ethan's reassuring words. I could feel the threatening presence advancing, fueled by malice. It seemed to draw strength from the very fear I was trying to channel into light. My heart raced as memories flooded my mind. The stories Celeste had woven in whispers about curses, betrayal, and despair. I felt those tales twisting around me, trying to pull me under. Then the image of the orb came to me, a symbol of hope amidst the chaos. I pushed back my panic and locked my gaze on its warm glow. "We have to believe," I shouted, trying to ignite a thread of strength within myself. As if sensing my determination, the orb flared brighter. The bright light chased the shadows back, if only for a moment. I could see the faces of the lost souls now more clearly. They were watching, waiting, like a distant echo of hope. The dark figure paused as if taken aback. "You think light can save you?" Its voice was a cacophony of whispers, making my skin crawl. Ethan turned to me, his face twisted in determination. "It can if we combine our strength." With that, we poured everything we had into the orb, our memories, our dreams, our pain. I could feel Ethan's essence entwining with mine, a bond that flickered like fire. The chamber vibrated with our collective energy, resonating against the wall of shadow. The figure recoiled, anger rippling through it as the light grew brighter still. But the energy surge wasn't enough. There was still a heaviness in the air, a force that pressed against my chest. Something deep down whispered to me that we needed one final push. "Think of how much we've lost," I cried out, channeling my thoughts of everyone who had suffered. How many have waited for freedom? As my words resonated, light erupted like a supernova. The orb pulsed with raw energy, illuminating the chamber, forcing the shadows back further. The voices of the lost souls surged, rising in a chorus of strength. But just when I thought we had the upper hand, the figure lunged forward, growing more solid, more desperate. "You will pay for this," it snarled, reaching out with clawed hands. Panic surged anew. I glanced at Ethan, my heart pounding. "What do we do?" "Trust the light," he shouted. "Merge with it." I had no time to question him. In that moment, I had to act. I released my grip on the fear that clung to me, and with every ounce of strength, I called upon every flicker of light within me. "We stand together. You can't win." The dark figure lunged one last time. Then, everything went white. I couldn't hear or see. I felt suspended in pure light, as if the weight of the shadows had been torn away. But was it enough? I stood in the blinding light, disoriented and gasping for breath. It wrapped around me like a warm embrace, but dread lurked just beneath the surface. What had happened? Had we defeated the figure? The silence was deafening, and I strained to hear something, anything. Suddenly I felt a tug, as if the light was pulling me towards something. Instinct urged me to resist, but a gentle current enveloped me, guiding me forward. I reached out instinctively, my fingers brushing against something solid. "Ethan," I called, my voice trembling in the vast emptiness. "I'm here," he replied, his tone flickering with relief. "Stay close." Before I could respond, the light shifted, revealing an archway that hadn't been there moments before. A soft glow spilled through it, and I felt an inexplicable force urging me forward. I glanced back at the space where the dark figure had been, a flicker of fear igniting within me. "What if it comes back?" I asked, edging toward the archway. Ethan stepped forward, pulling me along. "We can't dwell on that. We have to see where this leads." With a deep breath, we stepped through the archway together. The scene transformed in an instant. We stood in a long, dimly lit corridor lined with mirrors. Each mirror reflected a version of us, each one slightly different. I noticed that in one I appeared as a stronger version of myself, fierce and unyielding. In another I looked lost, my face drawn with despair. "What is this place?" I whispered, my skepticism blending with awe. "It feels like a crossroads," Ethan said, his brow furrowing, "like a place between choices." I touched one of the mirrors, feeling the cold glass beneath my fingers. My reflection smiled back, but the eyes held a sadness that pierced through me. "Maybe this is where we find answers," I murmured, studying each version of myself. "Or maybe it's a trap," Ethan replied, glancing nervously at the mirrors. Just then, the air shifted again, charged with electricity. One of the mirrors rippled like water, and a face emerged, an unfamiliar woman with dark hair and piercing eyes. "You dare to tread here?" She spoke, her voice echoing ominously down the corridor. My heart raced. "Who are you?" I shouted, instinctively stepping in front of Ethan. "I am the keeper of choices," she said, her smile unsettling. "You stand on the brink of a decision that could alter your fate. Will you embrace the light or succumb to the shadows?" "What do you mean?" I stammered, suddenly feeling vulnerable. "Each path leads you deeper into your true self," the keeper said, sweeping her hand toward my reflection. "But be warned. Choosing one means forsaking another. What you seek may cost you dearly." A rush of uncertainty crashed over me. I glanced at Ethan, whose face was a mixture of fear and determination. "We can't leave without knowing the truth," I said, gripping his hand tightly. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement behind another mirror. A shadowy figure seemed to be trapped, reaching out but unable to break free. My heart sank. Was there more at stake than just our fate? "Please," I called out, my voice wavering. "Is someone there?" But the shadow only deepened, and the keeper's laughter rang in my ears, chilling me to the bone. "Choose wisely, for time is running out." Then everything felt like it was spinning. I needed to act, and fast. What would I sacrifice to save someone I didn't even know? I hesitated, staring at the shadowy figure that flickered in the mirror. It was as if a call pulsed through the air, urging me to reach out and bridge the gap that separated us. My instincts screamed at me to hold back, to focus on Ethan and our immediate situation. "We can't help them," Ethan whispered, his grip tightening around my hand. "We don't even know what that is." But something deeper within me felt a connection. "I can't just leave them," I insisted, stepping closer to the mirror. I felt an unusual warmth seep into my skin as I placed my palm against the cold glass. "Ethan, something isn't right. What if they're trapped like we were?" "Or it could be a trap," Ethan warned, glancing back at the keeper. The keeper had grown silent, watching us with an expression that was almost amused. She wasn't making any attempts to intervene, and that unsettled me even more. As I concentrated on the shadow, I thought I could make out a face. It twisted in torment, a silent scream echoing through the confines of the mirror. The urge to reach out grew stronger, my heart pounding in rhythm with the figure's desperate attempts to escape. "Please help me." A voice suddenly echoed from the mirror, stronger now. It filled the corridor, bouncing off the walls like they were alive. "I need your help." "Who are you?" I cried out, heart racing. "What happened?" "I was trapped by the keeper," they replied, crying out. "She never lets anyone leave until they make a choice, but I was fooled. I thought I could bargain with her." Ethan pulled me back. "This is dangerous," he urged. "We have to go. We can't get involved." But the figure's eyes, shimmering with desperation, held me in place. "You have to break the spell. You have to choose to either save me or free yourself." "Stop!" The keeper's voice cut through the air. It wrapped around us like a vine, constricting my resolve. "What you see is not what it seems. Do you really think you can save them without consequences?" The weight of her words sank into my chest. I glanced back at Ethan. He looked torn, but fear shadowed his eyes. He needed me to choose, to step away from the unknown and go back to safety. But could I live with the knowledge that I left someone behind? The figure's face twisted in pain, and I could no longer stand by. "I'll do it," I shouted, my voice echoed in defiance. "I'll choose to save them, whatever it takes." The keeper's smile widened, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Very well, but remember, every choice comes with a cost." In that moment, the corridor began to shift, the mirrors rattling and vibrating as the figure screamed in anguish. I felt a rush of reality crackling around me. Ethan's grip on my hand tightened, panic flashing in his eyes. "Don't!" he shouted. And then, everything went dark. The last thing I saw was the keeper's laughter fading into a chilling silence, leaving me to question whether I had made the right choice after all. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the apartment above the bookstore, gasping for breath. The morning sun sliced through the window, its rays slicing through the remnants of shadows that had chased me through my nightmares. I blinked rapidly, disoriented but alive, the rush of panic beginning to ebb. I stumbled to my feet, heart still racing. Had it all been a dream? The darkness, the figures, the choice. It felt all too real, yet now my apartment seemed blissfully ordinary, devoid of the overwhelming tension from before. I inhaled deeply, trying to calm myself. But just as I was beginning to convince myself that it had been a hallucination brought on by stress and fear, I noticed something on the kitchen table. It was the dark stone orb. It pulsed gently with a light of its own, a ghostly reminder of what I had faced. I reached out tentatively, feeling the warmth radiate from it. The vivid memories began to flood back, and memories of Ethan's face flashed in my mind, the despair and the hope in his eyes. I hadn't broken anything. I had simply emerged from the shadows, possibly untouched but far from unscarred. My gaze shifted to the window where I saw the tall silhouette of Celeste in the adjacent building. She was standing there, her eyes two hollow voids, staring right at me. I felt a cold chill trickle down my spine. Was she watching me still? I remembered her warning about the Pact, and knew intuitively that escaping didn't mean I was free. I had chosen to confront the darkness, but in doing so, I had also woven myself deeper into its tapestry. The Keeper, the choice. What if the consequences had merely been postponed? Suddenly the sounds began again. A low moan that curled around me like a spine-chilling whisper, echoing from the attic. Without thinking, I rushed toward the stairs, propelled by a mix of dread and curiosity. I hesitated at the door, my heart pounding violently. The thudding was louder now, a relentless rhythm that seemed to beckon me back into the abyss. As I climbed the stairs, I felt a tug of familiarity. This was my escape, yet it felt like a descent back into a storm. I reached the door to the attic, trembling fingers hovering over the cold doorknob. What awaited me on the other side? Answers? More darkness? Or the connection to what had once been between Ethan and me? With a resolute breath, I turned the knob, pushing the door open. The flickering light of candles illuminated the space in a soft glow. The ritual setup was eerily similar to what I had seen before, symbols lining the walls like a map of memories. Suddenly, I spotted something moving in the shadows, a figure emerging from the darkness. My heart raced. Was there a way to break this cycle? The figure stepped into the light, revealing itself to be Ethan, his gaze steady, filled with a mixture of regret and determination. "Are you here to finish what we started?" he asked, the words hanging in the air, thick with implication. I thought it was over," I whispered, uncertainty creeping back. He stepped forward, and the warm glow of the candles flickered, almost in response. "You know it isn't. Not yet. Remember what we faced? The curses bind us, but they can be entangled too." I swallowed hard. Could I truly face what I had chosen? The doubt washed over me like a familiar tide, but I glanced at the orb resting on the ledge of the attic. The choice that loomed ahead felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. "I'm scared," I admitted, voice small. Ethan offered a reassuring smile, and a flicker of the boy I once loved shone brightly in his eyes. "You don't have to do this alone, not anymore. Together, we can confront the Keeper, or anything else that lurks in this darkness." I hesitated, fear battling with hope. But I remembered why I had come here in the first place. To reclaim my life, to confront the shadows that threatened to drown me. With Ethan by my side, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could finally break free. "Let's do this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. As we joined hands, the shadows flickered with energy, as though the room itself awakened to our choice. But as we stood there, breathing in the charged air around us, I could feel a pull of uncertainty still lingering deep inside me. Was this truly the end, or merely a doorway to another dilemma? I couldn't shake the sense that however this played out, some questions would remain unanswered, and some choices would haunt me forever. Together, we took a step forward into the unknown, knowing some bonds are unbreakable, yet still anxious for the darkness ahead. I still think about it sometimes, the things we faced together in those frenetic moments. Choices I made dance in my mind like shapes in the shadows, reminders of the cost of confronting the unknown and the consequences of what lies in wait. And while I moved to a different town after that, I couldn't help but wonder, was she, or something far worse, still there?